In the 1850s, a single cable changed the world. It stretched beneath the Atlantic, connecting the coasts of Britain and America, not by ship or messenger, but by electricity. The first transatlantic telegraph was a marvel of human effort and ambition. It failed several times, snapped under pressure, and was nearly abandoned more than once. But in the end, it succeeded. And for the first time in history, two continents could speak in seconds. It's easy now to take for granted the systems that carry our words, but every wire, every signal, every leap in communication has always brought with it new questions of power, of control, and of responsibility. Today, we look upward, not downward, because above our heads, a new kind of cable is being strung, not through oceans, but across the sky. It is fast, it is powerful, and it does not belong to any nation. This is a story about Starlink, not as a product, but as a force, a system that brings internet to rural towns, military outposts, merchant ships, and mountaintops, but also a system that can be shut off, throttled, rerouted, or perhaps even worse, never governed. In this report, we'll examine why Starlink is more dangerous than people realize. We'll explore its role in geopolitics, its structural vulnerabilities, and the uneasy future it represents for global communications. Let's begin. Hello, I'm Gene Botkin, and if you find this kind of reporting valuable, grounded, measured, and focused on facts, then go ahead and click like. And if you want to stay updated as we follow the future of space infrastructure, then consider subscribing. It helps more than you think. Now, Starlink began as a business solution, a constellation of satellites meant to bring internet access to underserved areas. But it has grown beyond that, with more than 6,000 satellites in low Earth orbit and hundreds more launching every month. Starlink now represents the largest commercial satellite fleet ever assembled. And unlike traditional telecom systems, it's vertically integrated. SpaceX owns the satellites, the rockets, the ground terminals, and the operating system. That means decisions, from bandwidth prioritization to service availability, are made by a single entity. This is not just a public utility. It is a private infrastructure project with global reach. And that reach now extends into war zones. Starlink played a vital role in Ukraine's defense, but it also demonstrated the dangers of unilateral control. When Elon Musk declined to extend coverage over Crimea, operations on the ground stalled. No vote, no debate, just one man and a policy shift. And it's not just about who gets access. Starlink's ability to bypass traditional telecom infrastructure poses serious challenges to state sovereignty. Traditional communications are routed through national gateways, but Starlink routes through the sky, which leaves us with a serious question. When a single private company holds the keys to global connectivity, who gets to knock on the door? Starlink is often described in glowing terms: ubiquitous, resilient, and apolitical. But communication systems are never neutral. They shape what can be said, who can say it, and when the signal cuts off. The satellites themselves do not make these decisions. People do. In theory, Starlink offers open internet to anyone with a dish and a clear view of the sky. In practice, service areas are carved by policy. Coverage maps can exclude entire countries. Data routing can prioritize some clients over others. Military contracts can quietly take precedence over civilian traffic. And since everything runs through proprietary software, the public has no way to audit these decisions. Now consider the case of Taiwan. Starlink could be a lifeline in the event of a blockade, but it could also be a liability. If a geopolitical deal is struck, or if pressure is applied, the signal could vanish. Starlink is only useful when its owner allows it to be, and there is no clear legal pathway for holding it accountable. It is not merely a public utility, it is a military asset. It occupies a twilight zone of influence, moving in and out of national jurisdictions with the quiet freedom of orbital drift. And this is the true danger posed by Starlink. Not that Starlink will fail, but that it will succeed so thoroughly that nations begin to depend on it, without the tools to regulate it, replace it, or resist its decisions. The great communications platforms of the past, Telegraph cables, telephone grids, and fiber optic lines were built through national charters and overseen by laws. This one was built by a launch manifest, and it is already overhead. At first glance, Starlink seems invulnerable, thousands of satellites crisscrossing the globe and forming a mesh so dense that no region is left uncovered. But this appearance of strength masks a deeper fragility. The system is centralized, proprietary, and controlled from a limited number of ground stations and data centers. Starlink satellites communicate with each other via laser links and with the ground through radio frequencies. That means its operations rely not only on orbital hardware, but on Earth-based infrastructure, data centers, network routers, and uplink stations. And many of these are consolidated in the United States or in its allied nations, and that is an attractive attack surface. Cyber attacks against these nodes could corrupt routing protocols, redirect traffic, or disable critical services. And unlike traditional satellites, Starlink's lean architecture leaves little room for redundancy. If the onboard software is compromised, then there is no backup payload to take over. If the command chain is spoofed, a fleet-wide misconfiguration could be pushed in minutes. The military knows this. That is why American defense agencies have begun stress testing Starlink in classified war games, and foreign adversaries have begun to take notice. Russia and China have already explored techniques for jamming Starlink's downlink frequencies and spoofing its control signals. The more the system becomes militarily indispensable, the more it becomes a legitimate target. And here's the problem. When your communications infrastructure is both civilian and military, any attack can spiral. A commercial satellite disabled over Europe could knock out medical supply chains, weather monitoring, drone operations, and potentially trigger a state-level retaliation. Starlink was not built to be a geopolitical flashpoint, but it is rapidly becoming one. It was designed for speed, for coverage, and for reach, but not for resilience under fire. And the sky is far more combustible than it seems. So Starlink is not just a technology. It is an arrangement of power, one that crosses every border and answers to none. The international community has frameworks for regulating airspace, oceans, and even Antarctica. But space is the realm that was left to treaties back in the 1960s, back when the moon was merely a dream and satellites were few. No one anticipated a globe-spanning, privately owned internet infrastructure parked in low Earth orbit. And yet here we are. Governments have begun signing agreements with Starlink, not as regulators, but as clients. Whole ministries run off its bandwidth. Military units plan logistics over its signal. Civilian agencies rely on it for disaster response. It is, functionally, a state within a state, but one with no electorate and no constitution. What happens when a nation wants to inspect Starlink's security protocols? It can't. When it asks for data on foreign surveillance, that's proprietary. When it disagrees with a service change, and there is no appeal process. Even the backup plans are thin. Europe has struggled to launch a competitor. China is racing to develop its own version. Meanwhile, Musk continues to scale, with thousands more satellites approved and new ground hubs being built in strategic locations. This is not science fiction anymore. It is infrastructure being placed in real time. And here's the irony. The internet was once hailed as a force for decentralization, a web of equals. But Starlink is centralizing that web in orbit, vast, quiet, and above jurisdiction. It is a reminder that the tools of liberation can become instruments of control, depending on who holds the key. And so we have entered a new phase of civilization, where sovereignty may be decided not by who owns the land, but by who owns the link. Which brings us to another history lesson. In 1776, rebels with muskets declared their independence, not only from a king, but from a system that treated distance as control. They believed that power should be close to the people it governed, not across an ocean, and certainly not in space. Centuries later, we are once again looking skyward, but this time, the sovereignty we're debating does not come with a crown. It comes with firmware updates, downlink licenses, and orbital slots. Starlink is a triumph of engineering. It brings internet to places no cable could reach. It connects the disconnected. It closes gaps in opportunity and in service. But it also raises questions we're not prepared to answer. Who controls the infrastructure of free speech? Who decides when a country gets to speak or stay silent? And what happens when public life runs on private rails? These are not questions for the distant future. They are here now, in every uplink, in every pass overhead, in every signal that leaves the Earth and comes back, shaped by hands we did not elect. If this report offered you something you hadn't heard, if it helped you see the sky with clearer eyes, then consider clicking the like button, and if you want to follow the story as it unfolds, subscribe to the channel. There's more to cover, and we'll be here to cover it. Until next time, stay grounded and keep looking up. Let's meet again soon. With Elenarda, I'm Gene Botkin. End transmission.